Ça qu'a fait tout le monde, ça qu'a fait ses amis pour lutter, nous retourner avec un autre nouveau épisode. Mes amis, épisode ça, je suis vraiment excité pour lui. Je dis à nous gagnons invité avec nous qui gagne et qui ça tech agency et qui ça le fait aider et compagnie like Fortune 500 companies source talents, qualifying talents. Et je dis à c'est un pile plaisir pour nous gagner avec nous. Et Monsieur Jephte Cherubin. Et Jephte, welcome on the show, man. Welcome on Coin Podcast.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Jeff, parlons de women. Like, tell us your current role, and I know anything in addition to what Luther just said. Anything that you would want to let the people know about you and what you do in your role.
Yeah. So currently, right now, I run a recruiting agency called Ultra Tech Effect. And with Ultra Tech Effect, we help Fortune 500 companies land qualified, diverse talent, technical talent. We focus on the technical talent side of the tech field, of the recruiting field. And our purpose is to actually help those who typically wouldn't have the opportunity to get into tech, right? And we also provide coaching on the side. And that's something that we've been doing since our inception is coaching. We started with coaching and now we're doing recruiting, which has been a very easy and very smooth transition. But on and on, in a nutshell, like we're simply a company that helps others get into tech and through many verticals, right? Whether it's helping them get a job, providing them the resources that could help them get into a job in tech, connecting them with the right recruiters, connecting them with the right folks that actually are in that field and that could actually be a mentor. So we're in all basically basically a nice hub that help people who have interest in getting tech industry get in.
So you're a talent guru.
You
can look at people and say, you know what, you'll do great in tech, and I can connect you to the right resources. That's what it is.
He's the plug. He's the plug.
That's how you call it in the street. But you got to be careful, because if you say plug, people might think something else. But he's the tech plug. I got you, man.
I am definitely definitely a tech plug for sure.
Got you. So before we get into like the meat and the greediness, the nitty grittiness of the episode, we like to start it with a little bit more relaxed and talk about you, and that's why we asked you to introduce yourself. But also, you're Haitian, right? So we want to shout out the Haitian in you. We want to let you flex your Haitian muscle. I know you told me you were born and raised in Haiti. So tell me a little bit about your fondest memory growing up in Haiti.
Man, like growing up in Haiti, I miss I would say New Year's time, right? The coup décembre, bien 25 décembre.
25 décembre.
Yeah.
Like, although I was like, I grew up in Haiti until I was like 8 years old, and I came here to the US. But even as a kid, I remember the times where like, let's say there's some moun pa dormi,
Yeah, sure.
Like, exactly. Like exactly. Like we're out here doing just anything in the night. It's crazy. And at that time too, it also felt safe. So like I missed that time about Haiti. Yeah. If I could go back to memory, I would try to go back to those times for sure.
You sitting out on the roof of the house too. You do that and stare at the stars, up to the music, the singing competitions. I feel you on that.
Exactly. Or you would go to the little stations and buy some Frisco. They used to like sell.
Oh my goodness, Frisco with some pistache in it. I don't know if y'all used to do that, but man, I used to do that a lot.
That's life right there.
That's the good life for sure. Yeah.
That's a good life, man. All right, so Jephte, let's get right into it, man. So Tyler usut parlem, you were giving us an introduction of what Ultra Tech Effect is. So now, if audience want to know who is Jephte, qui est-ce qui Jephte? And like tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So So my background started in tech, you know, but my path into tech wasn't the easiest. So which actually birthed the Ultra Tech Effect, right? And I could talk about that later on, but me in a nutshell, I'm a guy who have a passion to help people. I'm a person who loves music. I love the outdoors. I'm a long distance runner. Like I like to run. What else? I like to try new different things. And yeah, like most important thing is like I love people, right? I've learned to love people, and I think that is just an amazing part about like my journey. And yeah, that's just me in a nutshell, honestly.
Nice,
Okay.
nice. Side note, you know, I was in a band with Jephte for 1 day.
For 1 day.
2 hours, 2 hours it was. 2 hours. It was a
Who
good 2
fired?
hours.
Who fired who?
You can go
No,
ahead and ask
it wasn't
Jephte what
that.
happened to the band.
Yo, let me tell you,
Benakazi.
Go ahead
the
and
band
ask
would have
Jephte
gone
what happened
far.
to the band.
That band would have gone far if we kept it up. I'm just saying, that band would have gone far. We just, you know, if we had gone in 1 extra hour, we would have been somewhere.
1 extra hour.
Okay, okay.
So what happened to the band? Nikaze or what? Is it still there? What's going on? What are you guys hiding?
I think-
Avant même commencer.
Yeah.
That's great.
Listen. I'm down to do it again because I'm looking for new hobbies. So listen, whenever I know you're in Orlando, you know what I'm saying? If you come up to the Houston area, let me know. If I come down, let me know. I'm down. I'm always down.
So Jephte, I feel like you tell us about your life and how it centers around tech, but like I don't know that you didn't tell me about the 9-year-old Jephte and all of that, like the 10-year-old Jephte. Like tell me about that before we jump, because we're gonna talk about tech, but tell me about that version, that young Jephte that was dreaming about tech.
Yeah. So as a kid, I never had a passion for tech, like growing up, because I didn't know what tech was, right? So I never like really had a passion. And growing up, I grew up. My first 8 years of living was in Haiti, and when I came to the U.S., I didn't know too much about what tech was or anything about career. My whole thing, I guess, I wanted to be. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor because I knew doctors took too much studying. And like for me, even as an 8-year-old, I acknowledged that I'm not the person that likes to like do all that work, right? And it was just something that I knew it was. Yeah, it was something I know that wasn't for me. But as a young kid, I was very creative in a sense. So like I always like to create things, but I never like had the confidence to like show it out or to like the confidence to create and be bold and be authentically me in a sense. So yeah, so as a kid, like coming here, I was very much into sports. I played ball. I played ball in middle school. I played volleyball in middle school. So I played basketball and volleyball. And that's all I ever knew. Right. So then I through high school, I was on a basketball team and volleyball team because I like sports. I like being out there. And from there, I remember like after college, like, you know, people would just look and like I see kids go to college. And for me, I never had the thought about college. Like I never had a passion for college, you know? It's not because like I wasn't like a smart student. I was smart. It's just for me, I always knew there was another route somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, yeah, I was just mainly just playing sports. That's all I ever knew. But it wasn't until basketball was taken away from me, then I had to face reality and look at, okay, now what can I do now to look like I had to force myself to look at other passions about the world, things that is good to do that can substitute this void that I had since I, you know, all of a sudden stopped playing basketball. So the younger me has always been this person who's been curious and very, looking to explore. And just always, fighting not to be in a bubble in a sense. So yeah, that's pretty much like the young me in a nutshell. I've just been the person that's like pretty much wanted to do whatever and just try different things.
Figure things out. Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of things. So you mentioned that you were never with that person that interested in college. So did you not go that path? Like did you bypass college and get into tech? And if so, like how did you?
Yeah.
Well, one first question is, when was that interest sparked for you into tech, and how did you get into it without going to college?
So I'll give you guys a quick story, right? And that involves you, Luther. So I had no interest. Okay. So after high school, I did go to a community college, which is Community State College. And I remember I went there for 2 years. I got my 2-year degree, and I was, the next step was FAU, and I was like, man, like I don't want to pay FAU money, and I don't want to pay the educational system any more money because I don't feel like it's worth the money.
Yeah,
right.
Hopefully, you're getting enough.
Exactly, and like so in school, I remember like my last semester, one of my last to last semester. I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but basically the semester before my last semester, I went to my counselor at the time, and I was like, hey, look, I need a career that I can make money right now. Like I need something that within like 6 months, I'll make money right now. And he was like, well, you could do this. We have this engineering program that, and then the schools, learn engineering. And I was like, yo, sign me up. It's like, you're gonna get a good job on it really quick. I'm like, yo, just sign me up. So he signed me up. And then I started taking classes like, I started taking physics, and like, I'm not a math guy. Like I like math, but I like numbers, like for financial numbers, but I'm not like, I don't like science math, like physics and so on. So that wasn't it for me. Like
You like numbers that brings more money in your pocket.
Exactly. Like I'm very.
There you go. That's the way it's going to put it.
I like exactly. It's like, so physics to me wasn't making sense. I like it, like the theories that they were saying, and I was like, and I had like a D in physics, and I was just not the best physics, like best at the physics. Like funny thing is that now I realize the importance of physics now, right? And I'm older, but at that time I didn't see how important physics was. And I'll explain that more as we get into this. But yeah, so like, and then my brother, and then I had a friend who was in tech, who was a software developer, and I was like, man, I kind of want to go there, but I don't know where to go. And I remember like I used to work at FedEx in a sense, and FedEx, I was like shipping boxes, and I would like watch people that would come into FedEx and like ship their laptops, right? So they will come and like ship laptops. I'm like, yo, how do you get the job? And you have to like ship a laptop. Like I would love to like have that, flexibility where I could work from home and ship up, get the laptop whenever I want to. And I remember I used to pack their laptops for them. And whenever they come to the job, I ask them like, what do you do? But they all will give me like some different, different field. Someone say I'm an accountant, like, and I'm like, oh, cool. You could work from home as an accountant, and then from there, and then my brother kind of like gave me the hint, hey, you should, really try out, tech and see what it's about. And I took a one networking class in college that was like not networking in terms of like networking as of like infrastructure networking, right?
IT networking.
IT networking. So I took that class, and my first, like that class literally like changed my whole world. And then from that class, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to be able to connect things to the domain. It wasn't easy, but I'm like, it was worth the challenge. So since after that class, I went back to school and they signed me up for a cybersecurity degree. There was a cybersecurity program that they had, bachelor program. And I was like, yo, sign me up for that. And then they signed me up for that. And then I went along and joined this this kind of like A plus Network Plus boot camp that they had. This other school was having it, right? So it was this boot camp that was having this courses, and I signed for that. So I was doing both at the same time. And then I remember I was in class one day, midway through the semester, and I was taking programming 101, and this professor, she was just, she was teaching the class, and I remember I said to myself, I cannot do this. Like, school cannot be the way for me, right? Then and there, I was like, so I dropped out of college there, and I dropped out the boot camp there. And what I did was I took my resume and I wrote on my resume my experiences from college and from the boot camp, and I literally will go to like different institutions and pass out my resume here and there. And throughout that transition, I remember me, Luther, my brother, and another friend of ours went on a trip to Orlando. We went to a park in Orlando. I don't know what the park was. I don't know if you remember, Luther.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. One of those.
So we went to our park, and I was like, I remember we were talking, I was trying to get into tech, and you were already in tech. And I was like, my brother was like, yo, you should speak to Luther, because Luther is already in there. So I talked to Luther, I was like, yo, what are you taking in tech? Like, what is in, I was asking like, what's trending right now? And you were like, yo, you should consider cloud. And when he said cloud, I was like, yeah, so our class, like, yeah, you should consider AWS. You give me the advice for AWS. So then I went back home from that trip and I started studying for AWS. And throughout that time, I landed a gig in tech. This lady, I literally went to businesses that weren't even hiring. I passed my resume, and this lady took a chance at me, and she gave my resume to the hiring manager as a help desk role, part-time help desk role. I wasn't making any money at the time, but because she gave that manager my resume, the manager called me back, and then from there, we started having the conversation, and then for example, and then I started like actually working for them, right? I got an interview, I was working for them. But throughout that process, I was studying for AWS because Luther mentioned it, but also I realized like, I didn't want to start at the bottom in tech, like I didn't want to start at A plus, Network Plus, because I feel like I was already in that boot camp, and I got everything I needed from that boot camp already. I didn't need to be like an expert. So I just went straight to the cloud, right? And then from that experience, I realized like I wasn't good at studying. I wasn't good. Like I took the AWS test, and for like I took the first one and I failed it. And then I took the next one and I failed it. So I got a job in tech without any certifications, anything like that. I was just, yeah. So, but again, it was a part-time gig. But throughout the process, I was just trying to get like new gigs, trying to get more experience. And then I ended up getting a job for the city of Delray, a part-time gig for the city of Delray. And so it was like 2 part-time gigs. One was paying me $16 an hour, but it was part-time, 20 hours a week. And one was paying me $10 an hour. But at the time, like I didn't care. Like I just wanted the experience, right? I wanted to know and get more experience. And because I knew experience could get me farther than certifications can, right? So because I understood that aspect, I leaned on the experience much more. And then eventually I got to this new company, but their cloud environment were like Azure. So I studied Azure, and then I started passing the certifications for Azure. So I'm like Azure administrator certified. And then I started to learn how to really study and how to really gain skills for myself. And once I knew how to gain skill for myself, I knew it was a wrap from there, right? So like I didn't have to rely on this institute, because I feel like school, when you go to school to learn, you don't really get to learn how to study for yourself and how to like gain skills for yourself. I'm not saying that for everybody, but for me, I didn't have that experience to actually learn to gain skills for myself or learn how to study for myself. So once I figured out how to study, how to like pass exams, yeah. So like now it's like since I started passing my cloud certifications, it's been like from help desk to cloud engineer to now running my own business in a sense.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you're right, man. Like, school is not for everybody. And I think sometimes, being Haitian and how we grew up, you find like some of us Haitians, like, we keep knocking our heads towards school, knowing that we don't like it, knowing that this is not the path for us, but just because of the kind of like praise that come with getting the degree or getting through school, and
Yeah.
how Haitians would look, Haitians are always getting ready to brag on us, which is a problem within itself. They're getting to brag on the degree and not the person and the character.
Exactly.
So it forces a lot of people to kind of like bang their heads in school and barely make it or graduate with a low GPA just to say they have a degree where they can't even do anything with it. So that's a good thing. I was listening to your story, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. What I've heard was a couple of turning points. I've heard you were playing basketball, you thought basketball was the way to go, then you're like, nah, that's not it, I'm gonna pivot. And I've heard you talk too about like, once you fell in love with what, the aspect of tech, you're like, okay, so I'm going to get all these certifications. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get my bachelor's in this and that, cybersecurity, whatever. And then you made another pivot. So I want to ask you this question, like, for people that are listening, what is it about you that says, I want to be successful, but I'm going to do it in my own way? What is that? Where did that come from? What is that about you?
Yeah, like I think sometimes it's like, it's this understanding that like, sometimes like, I feel like a lot of us are conditioned to think that there's only like a few paths to success in a sense. And sometimes like when you listen to other people ways or opinion about yourself, you start to just be following the crowd, because a lot of the time they just follow the crowd too. And like, I've always been like an outlaw. Like, I've always been different in terms of like how I think, how I move, how I dress, how I act. Like, I've always found myself to be a little bit different, and I'm not saying that to like boast myself, but it just naturally, and there's ways I'm different and good. There's ways I'm different that is bad, right? So I've always learned to understand myself and understand that the world is what you want it to be, right? Like, there's not just one way to make things happen. There's not just one way to get success. Like, success is really just, like, success starts now, right? It starts with how you think about yourself. That's where you see yourself. Because I've always like understood that, like, early on, I didn't know that's what I was doing. But now as I got older, like, I'm a dreamer. Like, I dream a lot. I dream of big dreams all the time. Like, I dream of myself in positions that if I told people, to be like, ha, that's funny, right? But at that time, that's how much I dream myself. So I realized, like, success is something that you create in your head, right? So if you want to get, like, if you like something and you want to get it, you could get it in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be in one state, or it would have to be in one, in one, I guess you could say in one environment. You could get it in different environments. You could get it at lifetime of your a different time of your life. You could get it by connecting with different people that you might never thought. So like, there are so many ways you could get what you want. But I'm a person where if I want something, I go get it. Like, I don't like I don't like people telling me you can't do it this way, because then you're just gonna motivate me to go do it that exact same way, or do it. I'm just a person who's always going against the grain.
Yeah,
but,
so you don't look for other people's definition of success to define that for you.
Right.
No, you just like, I'm gonna just find what it is for me right now, and then go get it.
Exactly. Honestly, man, like this world is like going back to physics, like, that I didn't take seriously. Like, this world is all about laws of physics. It's like, there's like, if you like the law of energy, right? Like, energy can be created or destroyed. Like, there are things that, like, once you put your passion into one thing and you start to think about it every day, you're gonna get there. Like, if you think about yourself as a terrible person all the time, then you're gonna be you might end up being a terrible person, because that's what you're putting out there. But if you think of yourself as this, and that's all you think about is different ways, because of the amount of energy you're putting in there, it's gonna end up becoming that, right? So like this world is made of different laws of physics that were not created but discovered.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. And as you were telling your story, I was trying to uh, highlight a couple of things that you said that I know that some people that are listening right now might be going through. Is that you were at a place where, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were at a place where, you know, of confusion in a sense, right? You're in school, you're in college, and you're like, oh God, like this isn't for me. Like I cannot see myself for a couple more months or a couple more weeks or a couple more years in here. So, and what you did is you said, you know what? Just like you were saying, you go against what everybody would think of. Oh yeah, you didn't graduate college, or you a dropout and things like that, and say, okay, I'm going to do it, right? You decide to make that decision. I think there's a lot of people right now who are struggling with that, and it's just running in their mind, and time is passing by,
They don't
right?
want to quit.
You don't want to quit, right? So it's like, oh, what if I do that? Then my parents gonna think this, my this, gonna that. So it takes a lot of courage, and I'm encouraged, someone right now who feels stuck right now. You have to make a decision, right? And not making a decision is also a decision, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that you make a decision, and then the next thing I want to highlight is that you start asking for help. You start asking, hey, I know you're in tech, so tell me about this. How did you get in it? You ask questions so that way you can, realign your goals and say, okay, maybe that's something I can do, right? So after that, you take that advice, right? You didn't just take it and just like, all right, well,
Right.
that was nice. But you take that advice and you take action. So that was the second thing that you did. The third thing that you did, I think that was commendable. You start passing out your resume. Not
Yeah, baby
everybody's
boomers,
doing
baby boomers would love this guy because that's how he did it back in the days.
it. Right, exactly.
It was you just
So,
take your resume from door to door.
again, that's him going against what everybody's doing. A lot of people might right now, maybe they're using LinkedIn. There's nothing wrong with using LinkedIn, but when you're taking the action of going into a business without even putting their ads out to get somebody and say, hey, I'm ready to work, right? So passing out resumes, that was another thing. And then, at the end, and you were able to follow through with all of those things. And the other part is, you decide to take a sacrifice of not getting paid a lot just because you wanted to gain the experience. I think that also was commendable, because not everyone would be willing to do that. So those are the points that I wanted to pluck out from your story that I think right now people who are listening to could be could benefit from.
Yeah, no, and I'll say, bro, like, speak, like, if, like, one thing I've realized, like, over the years is like a lot of life is just it's trial and error, like, and a lot of it is still like you. It's all about how much wisdom do you have, right? It's trial and error, and how much wisdom do you have for the season you're in. And I think like you mentioned how like the me applying what I've learned, what I've heard from you and different people I spoke to. This is what like wisdom is, in a sense, right? It's like knowledge is like wisdom without knowledge. Sorry. The application of knowledge is what wisdom is, in a sense. So it's like a lot of people just have a lot of great insights, but because they're not applying it,
They're not applying, correct.
they don't have the wisdom for it.
Yeah.
So like it's the same thing. Like I've realized sometimes it's like it's this. You mentioned that choosing a decision. It's like I hate being in a position of choosing, right? Where I'm choosing a different path, because when you're in a position of choosing, you're not going anywhere, like you mentioned, right? And by choosing, you're making a decision to like literally stay behind, and the world is not gonna wait for you. The world's gonna keep moving ahead. And it's this idea of making a decision and understanding that if you in hindsight, if you look at all the decisions you've really made, there's no such thing as a bad decision, right? In terms of like career growth and whatever you're trying to do, because if you make a decision, only two things might happen. You might realize it's a good decision or it's a bad decision, both of which are actually two good things that you need to go to your next decision, because that's what progress is.
Yeah.
It's just going to a next step.
Building
So
blocks. Yeah.
building blocks. Yeah. So yeah, I've always hated being in a position of choosing. I make decisions. I'm like, you know what? We'll see whether I like it or not. We figure it out.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. So so now let's kind of transition, right? So now let's say you got into tech now and you're getting your feet wet and you're getting those experience. So talk to me about the experience that you have in terms of, because statistically speaking, we know tech doesn't have a lot of black folks, right? If you want to be straightforward with that. So, how was the experience when you got in? How did you, it's a different environment. You're seeing, different people. So how was your experience there?
Yeah. So to be honest, I don't think I've ever had a tech job where I've been in a position with other Black folks. My first tech job, I was the only Black person there. My second was the only Black person there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever been in a position. Actually, I think there's one job like I've had, like a consulting job where I was, but I was with someone else, but rarely I've been in a position in tech where I've seen other folks that looks like me. And that also, like, it fueled a fire for me, because I know, like, the reason why there's not many, a lot of the reason why there's not many Black folks in tech, I think a lot of the times they don't have the resources to get into tech, right? They don't have someone in the air that's saying, hey, you can actually try this out, and you don't really need college if but college is always good. I'm not against college or anything like that. I think college is a path like everybody else. It's a vehicle. But again, it's not the only vehicle, right? So you can actually get into a high paying job by just applying, by just dedicating some time to just studying some courses, getting certifications, making great connections, and actually landing your job in tech. So for me, no one was telling me that. And I realized, like, it's not just me that is going through that, but it's this other folks that actually do the same thing.
Yep.
And no one is telling them, hey, you could actually do this. Like, no one is actually, they're so like, yeah, so no one is actually putting that in the air. So for me, Ultra Effect is a byproduct of a Black kid that's trying to get into tech, but that didn't have the resources to get into tech. And that was like the journey for me. When I got into tech, I wanted to create something where I can help folks out on the side, right, by coaching them into tech. So when Ultra Tech Effect started, it was just all coaching. Hey, people could call me. My goal was I wanted to get one or two folks, right? So I started helping folks around me get into tech. I've helped multiple friends around me get into a high tech job. And once I realized, like, I can do it for my friends, I was like, maybe I could extend it to the world also. So that's pretty much what Ultra Tech Effect started. It's just, hey, you want tech advice and got trying into tech, just hit me up. I can give you that advice. Because I know it's not easy to get into tech. It's just not easy at all. And others might make it seem easy, but for me, it wasn't easy. And I know for a lot of people out there, it's not an easy transition into tech. So yeah.
That explains a lot, actually, in terms of like your mindset. Still going with the just turning points and how I pivot and how you choose success. That also explains why you became the talent guru that you position yourself to be. It's like, hey, I realize a need, and I'm just the fact that there are not a lot of people that look like me, and I'm just gonna make a decision and choose to be part of the solution in that department. So that I commend you for that. Like Luther said, that takes a lot of courage, because I'm thinking about the field that I'm in personally in my 9 to 5. I don't think I would ever, take on the charge of saying, hey, let me get you through and become, like me, because it requires, just like tech requires so much certifications. People can show up and they're really not producing. So you being able to identify talents and being able to help people out, I commend you for that. That's what's up. And I was thinking about that. So let me ask you this question. So when was your mama I made it moment? Like, mama I made it. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be like about money, but maybe it was a room that you step into, maybe it was a conversation you had with somebody in tech. When did you feel like, man, I have achieved success in my own right, the way that I see success?
Man, like, honestly, I've had many opportunities where I should have celebrated that. Yeah, I've reached success, but I didn't, because I didn't realize how big of a milestone it was. I think for me, it's you know, making 6 figures in tech. Like, I think that was a milestone for me that I didn't think it was that big of a deal, until others said, I tell others about it, like, wow, okay, like, but for me, it wasn't that big of a deal at that time. But I do think when I mentioned it to my mom at one point, and she was just like, I could tell she was proud, but because she's my mom, she has to be like, tell me, give me
Keep
advice.
you humble. Keep you humble. That's how Haitians are. Haitians are never. This is why you weren't too happy about it either, because you're Haitian. You're like never satisfied, always trying to chase some more. That's what it is. So she was trying to keep you humble.
And she was, and for me, I never like realized that like it was a big like I think it's a big milestone, and I did it in like I think I did it in very short milestone, I didn't do it in 6 months, I didn't do it in a year, but I did it within 2 years, and for me that was pretty good. So yeah, that was that moment. I'm like, cool, okay, I think
that's my mom made it.
I think I'm good now, but that was a while ago too. But now looking at it, it's like, there's always new milestones. There's always new, like as you get into tech, you grow and you start to realize the industry as a whole, and you're like, okay, there's other paths and stuff like that.
Man, that's a huge accomplishment, man. Coming from someone who, dropped out of college and then, just went straight to getting certifications and following that and getting experience in tech, and now making 6 figures. That's big. That's big. And 6 figures, and honestly speaking, it's not common, right? It's not something that, the average, person is doing. So that's a huge milestone, dude. And you should be very proud of that. And you should celebrate a little bit more, man. Celebrate those milestones, pop a couple of, champagne bottles, and,
I mean, I don't work. I don't, like, I work for myself now, but like at that time, it was pretty dope, So, but yeah, like I wish I celebrated more. I'll say that. I wish I celebrated more.
Yeah, that's what's up. So I always trying to be as practical I could be on the episodes, and for people listening in, so they can get some steps to at least put themselves in a position where they can move forward if they're feeling stuck right now. So let's say right now you're speaking to your dropout Jephte from college, the Jephte that dropped out from college. So how would you tell that Jephte how to get into tech?
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now.
I think I would have told them, so if the goal is to lessen the learning curve, I think I would have told them to don't go to school, study a skill. So what that means is study a certification, study a skill. And that is something that I remember my brother used to tell me about, like Danny, right? And he used to tell me, yo, take a skill and study it, like just pick something to study it. But at that time, I didn't understand. But what I would told him, coming from me now, I would have been like the same thing. Don't worry about school. Don't worry about, don't worry about boot camp. Just learn a skill set. Because at that time I was living at home. I didn't have too much bills, you know. I was like, yo, I would just focus on skill set. I'll probably just learn coding, you know, or learn, just learn a skill set. And then from there, I can do freelance work. And then from freelance work, I could get into tech from that way.
Nice. I want to ask you follow-up questions on that. So, talk about certification. So right now, what are some hot on-demand certifications right now? If somebody's feeling stuck, they can at least start on, and then that could propel them to the next phase.
Yeah, I think right now, I think it's that question, like in terms of like what is hot certification out there. I think there's a lot that are out there that is hot.
Give me top 3 or top 4.
So like for me, I would just say anything in the cloud.
Okay.
But don't just start with like, sometimes like I want to tell people, don't be afraid to start with, the professional level instead of the associate level when it comes to cloud certifications. Because it's pretty much, a lot of the time people will tell you, well, start with the associate, get more experience and get more, and then you could pivot to the no one and get more, which is cool. I think it's important, but I just think like there's, that's what they experience for themselves, right? That doesn't have to be a journey. I think sometimes like anything that has to do with any certifications and Linux is important.
Okay, Linux is one.
Any certification and cloud is important. Any security.
We have multiple cloud platforms. So I want think about it like somebody's just listening in, doesn't know anything about cloud, but they want to know which one to choose, because if I say cloud, we have we know we have multiple cloud providers.
Associate, professional. I'm thinking like, what is associate? What's professional? Yeah, like what? So if it's somebody that right now is a CNA, and they're like, you know what, this is not working for me. I don't want to be a CNA anymore. No shade to CNA, but like, or they're a nursing assistant or a medical assistant. They're like, man, I want to pivot into something that I can enjoy. And they're listening to this episode. I like break it down for them in terms of like, that's why Luther asked for your younger self. Break it down for them in terms of like associate, professional, these where that you can't go wrong with those. Like I saw you on your Instagram where you talked about recession-proof tech jobs, and you were specific. Yeah, like so, in terms of those certifications, what are recession-proof certifications? What is it like? Where would you suggest somebody start?
So what you mentioned and what Luther mentioned is two different stories, right? So someone who's trying to get into tech from an early age, or someone who's trying to transition into tech. That is something that I'm gonna touch on after, because that is there's different methodologies to it. Okay. But so for Luther, like in a sense, okay, so the top 5 for me, like, and this is just based on what I've experienced, right? I love the Azure cloud environment. And I realized in my experience of working in Azure and AWS, I think Azure is much easier to adapt. So, and it's much easier to understand. I would push people towards Azure because that's what I'm used to and that's what I've known. And I realized, like, if you could get a lot of organizations out there, their environment is running on Windows. So if you know the Azure environment, and most likely you already know a lot about Windows, because as a child in school you play Windows all the time. So that'll be a quicker and easier transition for you. So for me, that's what worked for me. So I think any certification like Azure AZ-104 is a nice one. Azure.
There you go. Yeah. AZ-1. Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
What's the
Azure,
second one?
yeah. So the second will be, and again, the second one could really be what you want to do, because a lot of those certifications are pivot to what you. If you want to be an architect, I would say Azure, Azure architecture certifications is pretty nice, right?
Okay.
Or Azure, if you want to go to security, Azure security engineer is a nice certification, which is the one that I have also. So anything in Azure certification is pretty good, because that's how you get to the cloud, and that's how you can actually get yourself out there. And also one thing I would pivot people to is DevOps, right? Azure DevOps. So if you know DevOps and you know that side of the work, because that is like a pretty interesting role that I don't think a lot of people know, but that is something that if you're running code in an organization that's like doing an application, oftentimes you need someone that's in DevOps or that knows DevOps that can actually better help your environment and produce the product you're trying to produce. So like for me, I like DevOps a lot. Also, cloud architect is anything that says architect on it is something that folks should actually tap in. And also to Linux. I do think we're moving a lot of our world is the new world will move away from Windows eventually. And Linux will be this new operating system, or if it's not already, that's going to be leading the current B2B world environment in a sense. Yeah. But if you, so like, when it comes to top five, it's really just, because not everyone wants to be.
I understand.
Yeah, so it's like, you just got to pick, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just from your opinion, just drop the top five, and then
the path is cloud, cloud, Linux, and then also too, if you, cloud, Linux, or database or SQL, there's just so many. It's like, it's really, but the path, in my opinion, is you should focus a lot on the cloud.
So you said it in the beginning, before you answered Luther's question, that it's different from somebody starting out versus somebody transitioning into tech. Explain that, like, briefly. What's the difference?
Yeah, because when you're transitioning into tech, there's basically you coming from another professional field. So if you mentioned a nurse or something like that, right? You have to look for transferable skills that you've had in your current field that can actually go into tech. And believe it or not, there is some relation between someone who's a nurse and someone who's in tech, right? Because
talk about that. Double click on that.
Yeah, because if as a nurse, I think there's a lot of problem solving that comes to nurse. It might not be technical problem solving, but you do get to put in a position where you have to like fix problems and stuff like that. So the way you think about how you would fix a problem is important, because if you get into tech, because you get to help desk role, the way you think about fixing a problem is the main thing that's important, right? So like, if you don't have, if you're a good problem solver as a nurse, the chances are you're probably going to be a really good problem solver when you get into tech, once you fully understand what tech is, what tech is about. So transferable skills are very important. Like if you're a good communicator, right? Or if you're good at documentation, like documentation is everything in cybersecurity world, right? So if you're good at documenting certain things, you could take that same documentable skill set and bring it into tech. Because there's a lot of folks who are very, tech savvy, but they're horrible communicators. They're horrible at documenting notes. It's hard to find someone who's leveled at everything. So with that, like, there are different ways you could actually get into, you can actually use your current skill set, even if you're coming from another industry, that you could actually bring it into tech and actually be able to prosper, because you have that skill set on top of the technical skills that you have learned. So so that's where it's different. Because for me, starting out, I don't know what I wasn't coming from any career. I was just literally a college student trying to like get, start life. But yeah, so there is that different aspect that of both scenarios there.
Nice. Okay. That's awesome, man. So nous allons transitionner and then so nous allons passer non comment on dit ça? Comment on va Mark?
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire questions. So we're gonna ask you questions that is outside of tech, and you only have 3 seconds to answer them, right? So no, so short questions, short answers. That is. So let's transition into that. All right, rapid fire questions. Matt, all yours.
Yeah, man. This was good. I think this was a good conversation to have, especially the last part you explained about transferable skills. My first question to you is, what is the greatest lesson you learned in life?
Yeah. I think the greatest lesson I learned in life is like I'm a very faith-based person. So like I believe in God. I believe in like everything with God. So the main lesson I've learned, the biggest lesson I've learned in life is to live life without a parachute, in a sense. So basically you live life.
Go kill myself.
No, like I think a lot of us, I think growing up, we're transitioned to always have a plan B. And sometimes there's no need for plan B. It's a plan. If it fails, okay, move on to the next plan. You know,
fall on your face.
Yeah. I
back up.
I now live life without a parachute, and the difference it has made in my life has been amazing. And I wish I knew that growing up, because I've always found ways to like create like, hey, if this doesn't work out, at least I can fall back on this, right? Or if this doesn't work out, I'm gonna fall back on this. But sometimes it's like, you know, the world is your oyster, man. Like, just make whatever you want to make out of it, you're gonna make out of it.
The world is your oyster. Eat it raw.
Eat it raw. Golly. All right. So next question. So what is a book that would you say that changed your life? Like, okay, this book really impacted me.
Let me see. One book that did, I wish I had the book in front of me right now. But I can't think of the title.
What was it about?
Like Smart Money, Large Pockets. I have to find the title of the book for you. But if I find it, I can't really relate it. But I could substitute it with a person that has changed my narrative. And that person is Myron Golden. If you know who he is, you guys should look him up. He's a Black guy with gray beard and very wise person. And I would watch his videos on YouTube, and he definitely had a major impact on my life for sure.
What's his name?
Myron Golden.
Myron Golden.
You should listen to him, Luther. You're gonna love the guy. I can already know it. I can already see it. You're gonna really like the guy.
Nice. We'll definitely check him out.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you like stay at home or outdoor adventures?
Outdoor.
All day, every day.
All day, every day. Like I run all the time, and I'm currently training for a marathon, and I'm just like I love being outdoors. I love going to different cities and running. I love doing rock climbing. I just like anything outdoors. Like, you know, although yes, I do, like I'm in tech and stuff like that, but that's just not that's just not what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. You know, like I like to do things. I like to explore nature. I like to, you know, be at the beach and just explore life. Yeah, I'm definitely.
So you ran cities in you ran marathons in different cities before?
I've run races, but just not marathon. Just basically, I started with 5Ks, 10Ks. Now I'm training with for marathon.
Okay, that's what's up.
Awesome, Jephte. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast. I know we've been trying to get you on for the past years, and finally we made it happen. And I'm sure the listeners definitely had a lot of advice and a lot of great points in terms of how to get started with tech and how to get into the field and start being successful. So if anyone wants to connect with you and wants to connect with Ultra Tech Effect and they're trying to get into the tech field, where can they find you and provide your information?
Yeah, but before I get to that, I just want to say thank you for inviting me here. You guys are great. Like, I've been watching this podcast for a while now. I love the mission behind the podcast. I love the consistency behind it. Although to you guys, it might not feel that consistent, but to the other viewers, it's pretty consistent. If you go back to your track record,
I was gonna say we could do better. We could do better.
See, but if you go back, just go to YouTube and look at all the videos you've done.
Yeah,
it's pretty consistent, you know. So kudos to you guys for keeping that consistency, because eventually, you know, it's gonna definitely pay out in ways you guys didn't expect. But so if you're trying to get in contact with me, or if you're trying to look for coaching advice, you would go to, or you can just email me at info@ultratecheffect.com. That's info@ultratecheffect.com. And if you want, you can also DM me on Instagram. That's at ultratecheffect.com. And also, if you're looking for talent, diverse talent, but also qualified diverse talent, here at Ultra Tech Effect, we vet all of our candidates. We can provide you candidates based on your, you know, give us the hardest tech role it is that you have to fill. We will fill it up for you, right? We got some great offers happening. So if that's something that, if you're in need of a talent, maybe this week, tomorrow, and months to come, we can supply those talent right away. So, and you can email us at info@ultratecheffect.com, or you can go to our website at ultratecheffect.com and sign up in the contact section, and we will get back to you ASAP.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Once again, thank you for joining and thank you for coming here. It is an absolute pleasure. So this episode is powered by Haitian Millennial Money, which is our hub. If you're looking for any type of resource, such as Ultra Tech Effect, which will be on Haitian Millennial Money pretty soon. If you're looking for any advice on personal finance and things of that nature, go to Haitian Millennial Money, and then that's where the podcast episodes would also be resides. You can also follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Our episode will be on YouTube now. We'll be a little bit more consistent with YouTube. And follow us on social media. Essayez avec nos amis pour lutter still.
Amis pour Mac.
All right. Ciao, ciao.